Hey, this is Steve at theemotionresetcoach.com. And today we're doing another live video with my friend Kelly here. And Kelly, scoot your camera down just a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, we get right up about each and perfect. So what we're going to do today is, I kind of call it hacking the law of attraction, or manifesting or whatever. And today, Kelly is like myself. She's a practitioner. She does emotion code and body code work for people. And what she wants to do is she wants to manifest more financial abundance in doing this. And that's actually a very common issue for people. I know tons of healers who struggle financially, who they're incredibly compassionate people. Sometimes they have a hard time charging as much as they're worth, and sometimes they have a hard time kind of building a significant business. And, certainly one of the sad things is that there are plenty of practitioners who maybe aren't the best practitioners, but they have more of a business mindset, and sometimes those are the people with all the clients.
Right.
And so I'm excited to help you maybe work through some issues on how much you're worth, right? That's always a good thing, and maybe a vision for that this is doable as a more significant business. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with everybody, and then we're going to move forward on this. So first thing we like to do is just I always like to pray. I find for some reason I always get much better results when I do that. As if I'm getting help.
Right.
So, God, I just ask you for wisdom and insight to be a blessing to her and manifest more of your kingdom in her life. Amen. So, firstly, let's see, here's my testing stick here. And for people who are curious, I do muscle testing using this testing stick. So if you hear a clickety click, that's why that is. So Kelly, just give me permission to do this for you.
Absolutely.
All right. So I'm going to be testing for Kelly, and these are her results. So we're going to use multiple documents to do this. One thing I like to use is the map of consciousness. Is an excellent document to not only get descriptions of how people are feeling. We won't be doing this today, but it's an excellent place to measure your level of emotional consciousness regarding certain areas and just kind of get a very quantitative picture of where you're at compared to where you want to go. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, we also will be using the body code quite a bit. The body code and the emotion code were developed by Dr. Brad Nelson. Really phenomenal tools. Muscle, just a brief recap, muscle testing is just simply a yes or no response from the subconscious. And since we have kind of a binary system set up here, we can say, okay, the primary issue is on the left. Yes. It's and under energies. No. It's under circuits and systems. Yes. And what that allows, it allows you to kind of just using yes or no responses to nail down the issues, the primary imbalances that are going on, and then you can reset them. So anyways, we'll go back here. And so Kelly, the first thing we're going to do is I want to know kind of how you are feeling about money and building your practice, right?
Yes.
Sometimes that alone can give you kind of a good aha moment if you just understand, oh, that's how I've been feeling, and that doesn't actually make sense, and I change it, right?
Right,
So,
right.
I'm going to say, as Kelly, how I have been feeling is accurately described on the map. Yes, on the top of the map. No, in yellow, in orange, in red. So we go on red on the map of consciousness, and I'm just going to say it's in red God view. Yes. Condemning, vindictive, despising. So we're just going to toss a bunch of words out. And one thing I like to tell people is that I don't, it may sound weird, I don't ever attach my ego to being right, okay? I'm not here to impress you or anybody watching this video. My very focused intention is to just help you. And so, if we come across something that doesn't seem accurate or whatever, I'm fine. That's no big deal. Let me know. Certainly it would be weird if you were 100% accurate 100% of the time, right? It doesn't happen. But what you can find doing this is you can be accurate enough of the time to get excellent insights and help shift some things, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, let me ask you this. In terms of upbringing and everything, what type of, were you raised in a church environment?
No.
No. Are you currently in a church environment at all, or?
Yes.
Okay. You know, your denomination-wise, how does overall your denomination feel about like money and abundance and things like that?
That's a good question. I haven't checked in that much. I mean, I go to church every Sunday, but I definitely spend time reading the Bible and listening to my favorite pastors every day.
Yeah.
That's more with my connection. I haven't really connected as much with the church in doing this either.
Got it. Okay. No worries. As Kelly and I say, the second way that describes how I'm feeling about this is something on the map. Yes, on the top of the map. No. Yellow, yes. Yellow, God view, life view, emotion, process, affirmation, scorn. So the words, we're going to toss out the word scorn as well. Just see here, Miss Kelly, I feel my clientele's price. So the way I would describe it is, you know, if you charge more, that your clients, kind of a feeling that maybe your clients would scorn the price. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Sorry, it's thundering over here. So.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
What kind of dog do you have?
Pit bull.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
I've had multiple pit bulls. My last dog was not the Labradoodle I have. The last dog was a half pit, half Dogo Argentino.
Oh, yeah. So,
Yeah.
Of course, you know, they think somebody's breaking into the house when they hear thunder.
Yeah. All right. Clients will scorn the price.
And also, I don't know if this would be relevant, but like my mom, when I started doing well, she wants to be happy, but she's like, oh, that must be nice. Oh, that's nice that you can take all the kids to the movies. Or, oh, that must be nice. So I think a little bit of resentment.
Sure.
When I'm doing financially well.
Let me see. Yeah, so this first despising thing might actually be like feeling what you're feeling from mom. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Kind of like, oh, you know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Right.
So what we also need is something on the map, on the top of the map, and yellow, and orange, and red. Red God view, red life view. So we go red life view, hopeless, miserable. So we bring out the word miserable. So let me think about this. I am miserable. My current state is miserable. Feeling of business. So what I would say is, you know, it would always be wonderful if just the business came to us. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
But to have to go into like business person mode, does that make sense?
Yeah, marketing and all that, yeah.
Yeah, so I'd say this miserable is I feel miserable having to go into business person mode, right?
Definitely.
We have to get marketing and make it look good and charge people more money and figure out how to sell more and all that. Like,
Definitely, 100%.
Going into business person mode. Okay. And you know, you're not alone in this. There are a lot of people who do this sort of work or exactly that way, you know. But the sad thing is what happens is then there's a huge number of people who aren't benefiting from this work because they never heard about it.
Right.
All right. So description. So I would say that's good on the description part. Let's see if we can craft an affirmation for you, because again, for everyone who's watching, what we want to do is we want to craft an affirmation. This type of work is very good at, it's almost a kind of reactive work where we're getting rid of blocks, okay? But to really, just getting rid of a problem doesn't ever create something, okay? What people definitely need to do is they need to be very proactive in their intention and creation. A lot of that starts by using your focused imagination and affirmations on visualizing and seeing the situation you want, all right? Imagination is actually much more powerful than willpower, okay? And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna work on crafting an affirmation, and then we're gonna see, okay, how well are we connected to this? Does this make sense? And we'll go through this other list of things here. So the first word for this affirmation is accurately described on the map. Yes, so we go on the top of the map in green, in blue, blue God view, blue life view, blue emotion, serenity, reverence, serenity. So the emotion of serenity, which is at the level of joy. So first we put in serenity. So serenity is kind of the opposite of miserable, right? If you can just, you know, having a joyous time building your business and making money, right? So serenity, the second thing we need is something on the map. And it's important. One thing to understand is that, you know, your state determines the quality of your life, okay? And so you can't go try and build a business while you're miserable.
Right.
Or in a miserable state, all right? You're not going to get anywhere or be effective at all. So the first thing you have to do is connect to a certain emotional, physical state before you move forward in doing that, right?
Yep.
So the second word to describe what we need is something on the map. On the top of the map in yellow, go in yellow, God view, life view, emotion, affirmation, scorn, hate, scorn. Okay, so sometimes scorn can be helpful. Sometimes it can be bad things. Other times it can be a good thing, okay? For example, you know, if you, let me ask you, you go out to eat with some friends, you order a steak, you want your steak medium rare, it comes out medium well, okay? Typically for yourself, if food isn't quite what you wanted, and the waiter goes, hey, how is everything? How's your steak? Typically, what's your response?
Fine.
Fine, it's fine. So, and that's very common.
Tell everybody at the table.
What's that?
Then I'll tell everybody at the table. I can't believe it's so overcooked. And they say, why don't you say something? I don't say anything.
Exactly. So, and that's pretty common, but here's one thing to understand about that. And this is from someone who's worked a lot in restaurants. Okay. What do you think the waiter prefers that you do?
Probably tell him, because if I'm happy, I'll give him a better tip.
Yeah. So the waiter prefers that you say something. The cook, if he has any self-respect, wants you to walk out happy. The cook prefers they fix it. The restaurant manager wants everything to run smoothly, right?
Right.
So what you see is that there are massive amounts of resources ready, willing, and able to give you what you actually want, and yet you accept what you don't want instead. And because you don't say anything, then you're just stuck, right? So scorn is saying what I am currently experiencing is not okay. I'm worth more. That makes sense?
Right.
So it's not a selfish thing. It's like you can scorn something and be very nice about it, right?
Yeah.
The waiter comes up, and believe me, the waiter knows that your steak is not cooked properly, okay?
Right.
And can tell by your entire countenance that you're not ecstatic, right? And then he walks away and goes, well, there's nothing to do. I know talks to his manager, yeah, her steak's got cooked right, but she won't let me fix it. And the manager's like, what's her deal? I don't know.
Yeah, wow, that's a good way to look at it.
Does that make sense? So everyone's frustrated, and you're frustrated too. But if you just said, oh, no, do you think, you could cook it up or recook it? And he's like, awesome, happy to take care of you, right?
Oh, yeah.
You makes them happy, makes you happy, and you actually get what you want, right?
Right, yeah.
It's an important thing, but you have to decide that you're worth it, and that can be the trick sometimes, right?
Right.
So the other word described is something on the map, something on the top of the map, yellow, orange, and red. Red God view, red life view, hopeless, evil, miserable. So it's weird that the word miserable will come up on our affirmation. I could be wrong. Let's see. This needs to go on the affirmation. All right, maybe. So the misery is what we scorn. Remember up here, you were miserable about going into business mode.
Yeah.
So that's what we're scorning. Does that make sense? In other words, this disempowered state that you find yourself in when you're thinking of going to business is not worthy of who you are and what you're capable of. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because currently you go, I'm just miserable about, and you think it's normal and okay, and that's just who you are, instead of going, no. I will not see myself anymore as this disempowered person who's unhappy about making money and building a business. That's the old me, the new me, that's no longer acceptable. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because this is so out of the marketing, the business part. I've been in behavioral health for 20 years. I have a master's in social work. So it's all been, people working with people with access, people that haven't had a lot of money, mentally ill. And those have been the people that I've been working with on the lower economic level. So I'm thinking, oh, nobody can afford to do this because this is my experience for 20 years with.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. And, first of all, there certainly can be a way to do this marketing that you can enjoy. Okay.
Yeah.
A very interesting study was done. This group of researchers asked for two groups of people, one group who consider themselves lucky and the other group who consider themselves unlucky. Okay. And so what they did is they gave them all the same task, and it was to look through a newspaper and simply count how many pictures were in the newspaper. Right. Mm-hmm. And the researchers had added two additional items in. One said, by the way, there's 43 pictures in the newspaper. You can stop counting now, right? Right. And the other thing they put in there said, hey, congratulations, you've won $250. Tell the researcher, right? And so only the people who consider themselves lucky saw either one of those things. Oh. Right? So what often happens is the amount of information our conscious mind has to take in is off the chart. So just merely to survive, your brain has to make a lot of shortcuts, and it makes the shortcuts based on your subconscious beliefs. Okay. Gotcha. Believe me, I've worked, I used to live in Aspen. Uh-huh. Oh. Just a newsflash for you. There's a crazy amount of people with a crazy amount of money. Okay. And a lot of them go move to Arizona for the winter. Okay. So, and a lot of these people are paying a lot of money to get far less results than you could give them. They would be like, oh my God, you're so cheap. Sure. Yeah. So, even charging what you may consider a lot of money is cheap for a decent chunk of the population, really. It's crazy what people spend money on and not even think about it. I drive a limousine part-time, and often I'll go pick up people from their private jet and take them to a meeting or their home or something. And even if you don't own the jet, even a share in a jet, like a timeshare, okay?
Right.
Here's what it costs for a share in a jet. It costs you $10 million up front. It costs you $30,000 per month. And then it's also $2,500 an hour for whenever you're using it. So for example, you get in your jet and you're at a busy airport and you sit on the runway for an hour, $2,500.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
And there's a fair amount of people who do. I mean, you'd be surprised how many people they fly their own jet, you know? So yeah, whatever you think you're going to charge is like this, like, you know,
right. So I want to get past those blocks. And if I was in private practice as a therapist, you know, they charge $100 an hour, no problem. So
exactly. And I think, you know, that this type of work often gets quicker results than standard therapy, big time.
100%.
Yeah. In fact, I was listening to a radio podcast the other day and two therapists were discussing that. They're like, wow, they're just being honest with each other. And they're like, we look over, therapy really hasn't fundamentally changed in a very long time. And the results, I mean, if people are being honest with themselves, the shift in results for their clients must be frustrating. That's all I got to say. It's got to be frustrating.
Real quick, my foster daughter's therapist was over, and I've been working on her when she comes over to do therapy for my foster daughter. And she said, man, we've got to bring this to the mental health because I can't believe the results you've had in this short time. And every week I go to my supervisor and say, no change in all of her clients.
Yeah.
But
it's crazy.
Watching firsthand the results that I'm getting with her.
Oh yeah. I had speaking of young girls and your pit bull, I had a girl I worked on with deathly scared of dogs. 45 minutes later, walking out of my house, she's petting my pit bull on the head, walking out my front door. You know, it's like
that's priceless. That's her whole life.
Awesome. Yeah. So, all right. We also need to add something on the map and the top of the map on yellow. So yellow, God view, life view, permitting. So we got the word permitting in there. Permitting, I permit, let's see, permit who? Permit, you know, so one of the most difficult things for people to realize typically is that it's all much easier than you really think.
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes you just have to, sometimes the big part of living in abundance is just getting out of the way.
Right.
So this is like, I permit abundance to flow. You know, I think one of the easiest ways in terms of connecting to God's abundance is just two simple words. It's like, yes and thank you. Boom. Yeah. Right? Yes and thank you.
Because sometimes people offer, I'll give you this, or let me give you a little extra. And it's like, no, that's okay. No, God, they're saying here, I want to pay you more. And
yeah.
Like, that's okay. I mean, clearly.
So, you know, the Bible talks about giving and receiving.
Right. Okay.
Seed time and harvest.
Harvest, yeah.
Right. If you only give and you only sow seeds, it's messed up, right?
Right.
So, all right. So we need another word. That's good. So I'd say that's good. I'm going to brainstorm here a bit and look at these words and see if I can, see if I can come up with something. Then we'll write it out, then we'll test it, and we'll move forward. All right, let's try this. As I rest in serenity, I scorn the miserable state I used to occupy, and I permit abundance to flow. So permitting abundance to flow is if someone wants to offer you more money, you go,
Thank you.
yes,
Yes.
thank you. The other day I drove a guy in a limo and I picked up him and his daughter, and this is just an example for you. And I like picked him up at their hotel. I took him to do some golf. We were going to go to a restaurant, then go to a concert. And when they walked in for dinner, he took out $100, and because I'm gonna have to wait a bit, he goes, "Here's $100. If you need to go get yourself something to eat." I'm like, "Cool." And then when I picked him back up, I looked in the back seat, and there was a $100 bill sitting on the seat. And I picked it up. I go, "Oh, you dropped this." He goes, "No, I gave that to you earlier." I go, No, this is different." He goes, "Oh, well, you keep it." Like literally, he was like leaking $100. And at the end of the evening, he gave me, "Oh, here's another $100." Right? Just like,
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Receive it, So.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to take this. Does this make sense to you? As I rest in serenity, I scorn the miserable state I used to occupy, and I permit abundance to flow. That makes sense?
Yep.
All right, so we're going to say this affirmation is 30% or more what we need, 60% or more what we need, 80% or more what we need. Yes, 90% or more, 85%. So if we go, that's 80%. Maybe we can add something to it. We're going to add something on the chart to it, on the map to it, on the chart. Let's see here. We're going to actually add something from a different document and see, not something I was expecting, but we're going to add something from column A on the top, A1 through 5, A1, A3, A5, blaming, dread, fear. Fear, we'll add fear to the affirmation. Okay, so let's, miserable, fear. So I'm going to add the word fear right in here. Miserable, fearful. So not only are you unhappy, but you're worried about what is to come, right? Maybe, all right, what you would have to do to build your business. Does that make sense?
Right, yes. How many public speaking forums would I need to do? Right.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so this is 80% or more what we need. So I think that's good in terms of what we need. I don't think we're missing any big thing. Does that process we just did make sense?
Sure, and so that's the miserable, fearful state in business, right?
Yeah, the marketing, the building a practice, the asking for money, the what you think it's going to take to build it. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Whereas, it can, it could be so much simpler. You could be out at the dog park with your dog. You're talking to another bully owner. You're just chit-chatting. The owner mentions that their dog has some emotional issues. You're like, "Oh, well, I do this work." They're like, "Oh my goodness, that sounds so awesome. Would you do it for my dog?" You're like, "Sure." And their dog gets the results like this, and you just happen to be like doing it for the most connected dog person in Arizona, right?
Right. That's how God can do it.
Who's like, "By the way, Kelly, I hope you're not too busy because I just posted this on my private Facebook group and I've got like 50 people who want you to work with their dogs. Do you have time?"
Right.
Yes, and thank you. Right?
Yeah. Right.
You just skipped like everything, like bam, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's doable, right? So the whole what we're going to do is test real quickly for wholehearted. If you've never listened to Brene Brown's information, she has an excellent TED Talk on shame and vulnerability, 2 different ones. So being wholehearted is this. It means you're willing to go for it, even if it might not work out, because even if you totally fail, you're never vulnerable to shame. You're always worthy of love, right?
Right.
And that's a challenging thing for people because most of the time people connect their value to, performance, right? or how are they doing or not doing, or how much money is in the bank, or what other people think of them, or blah, 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 blah. Like,
Yeah.
So that's an excellent resource for people, for yourself and for other people. And it's a good understanding of that for your clients as well, because a lot of people deal with this shame stuff. All right. So I'm going to say, as Kelly, my percentage of being wholehearted includes 30, includes 60, includes 80, includes 90, includes 85. So one thing practitioners like us do is we often do a lot of work on ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you're actually pretty decent on that. We may fine tune that. So the next thing are alignment or testing phrases. And these can be very helpful to just find, someone goes, oh yeah, I really want that. It's like a BS test, right? For example, I did testing with one client who wanted to lose weight, and I thought we had gotten rid of everything. And we went through these testing phrases, and either the safe for me or good for me was no. To lose 30 pounds, it was like, no, not safe or good.
Right.
And that's weird, right?
Sure.
So we started doing some more work, and all these issues came up at 21. Well, when she was 21, her mother and her sister had just been killed by a drunk driver. Her brother was driving the car, was very seriously injured. She had to leave where she was going to college, come home to a local community college, work full time, and take care of her father and brother. And by the way, no one ever talked about what happened.
Right. Oh.
Guess what else happened that year, though?
I think I might have heard you say before, she lost weight.
Yeah, she lost 30 pounds. all the crazy stress, So subconsciously, what was going on? Oh, you want to lose 30 pounds? Oh yeah, we know how to do that. And yeah, no, you don't want to do that.
It's gotta be painful.
Yeah, it has to be a year like that, and you're out of your mind. That's not good or safe. So we're gonna take this affirmation. Just say this real quick for me. Can you read it?
Yeah. That one?
Yes.
I rest in serenity. I scorn the miserable, fearful state I used to occupy, and I permit abundance to flow.
All right, and just take a nice deep breath in and back out. So I'm going to say, as Kelly, I'm okay with this. Yes, I'm ready, willing, and able to do this. No. So we have one yes, one no. Safe for me, good for me, yes and yes. I want to. I believe I can. I can honor it. I'm worthy of it. So the worthy part is a no. I can be supported by others in it. Yes. So we've got 2 no's. Let's see if we can fix those really quickly. And so what we're going to do is we're going to see what's, for people who aren't super familiar with this, we'll just see what's blocking you energetically on that. Besides the emotion code and body code, I typically use something called spiritual roots, which just means the most spiritual thing you can do is to exercise your will in a certain direction. And sometimes we exercise our will in a way that's not in alignment with God's kingdom or his best for you, right? Like
Sure.
If you make it's a vow, a judgment, offense, unforgiveness. So if I make a judgment like I'm a loser, God goes, well, but I love you, right? So we're not in alignment, right? So I'm going to say, as Kelly, blocking me from this as a spiritual root. Nope. Trapped emotion. Nope. Let's see, maybe something on the something on body code. Nope. Okay, so I would say it's not a spiritual root. It's not on the emotion code or the body code. Any guess on what it is? You just kind of have to make a decision, actually.
Oh. All right. Well, I have done a ton of work on myself. So.
Yeah. So sometimes it's just like, you know what? Just try this. Take a nice deep breath in. And just say, I decide today.
I decide today.
That I am ready, willing, and able.
That I'm ready, willing, and able.
To step into abundance.
To step into abundance.
As I rest in serenity.
As I rest in serenity.
All right. So I'm ready, willing, and able. Yes. So it doesn't always have to be complicated, right? But sometimes you just gotta say, you know what? How about today? Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that may be a decision you have to make more than once,
Right.
but that's okay.
Mhm.
As Kelly, blocking me from feeling that I'm worthy of it is the spiritual root. A trapped emotion, a spiritual root. So we go a vow, a judgment. I judge myself. I judge others. I judge money. So a judgment, money. I judge money to be something on the map, on the top of the map, and yellow, and orange. Orange God view, orange life view, orange emotion. So we judged money to be something down here under an orange emotion. Craving. Money creates craving. So I would say it's kind of a judgment, and tell me if this makes any sense. Money creates craving, kind of like people who have money, you kind of get on this snowball effect, like, oh, I have money and I want more of this. Ooh, I want more of that, right? And it kind of creates, the more money you have, the more you're aware of what you want that you don't yet have. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
All right. So, do you have to have money to have this state?
No.
No. A lot of poor people crave a lot of stuff, right? So, it's not the presence of money or not, right?
Right. That sometimes we turn off the craving and then the money turns it back on.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, I will state the obvious that a woman who has multiple foster children isn't focusing her life on driving a Bentley and wearing fur coats. Okay.
No. Right. Right. Not at all.
You could probably instead have 3 more foster kids or something, right? It's like,
right. But
yeah.
my marriage that I had 15 years, that money is what, when way back we started to have more money, then my ex started to spend and buy and buy and buy and buy, and kind of spendaholic, ended up causing a lot of trouble in our marriage.
Yeah.
So I witnessed his cravings, how everything got out of hand.
Sure. But it wasn't an issue for you.
No.
Right.
Not
so
no.
This has to do with other people, not you, right?
Right.
So just say this, say, I let go.
I let go
of any judgment.
Of any judgment.
That money creates cravings.
That money creates cravings.
Say, I can't help that other people have issues.
I can't help that other people have issues.
But it's clearly obvious.
But it's clearly obvious.
That I do great things when I have money.
That I do great things when I have money.
Right. And I mean, that's like.
That's true.
Yeah, having foster kids is like the very definition of like selfless spending of your time, money, and energy, right?
Yes, on my 2002 card, and I see all my friends. A lot of our friends have a lot of nice cars. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, and by the way, down the road, one thing to explore is make sure that you don't have a zero-sum thinking. And
okay.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
A zero-sum thinking is the type of thinking where if someone drives a really nice car, that someone goes, well, that means orphans are starving in Africa, right?
Oh, yeah.
No, there's abundance. There's plenty for everybody. You know, right. We don't have like this much resources. It's like, you know, someone comes up with an idea and you quadruple the amount of whatever. It's like no big deal. Does that make sense?
That's right. Yeah.
All right. So we'll just say, I am worthy. Yes. So we're good on the I am worthy part. And so, yeah, obviously you've done a lot of work on yourself. We kind of hammer through those pretty quick. I'm going to say, as Kelly, how deep, so when we talk about using affirmation, one thing we're talking about is, are you aligned to it in the first place? Then are you going deep enough into the subconscious connection, and are you going high enough? It's like deep enough is like, is everything worked out inside, right? High enough is like, how well are you connecting to whatever you want to call it, God, higher power, whatever. I'll tell you a very interesting thing. A guy who works a lot with, manifesting things, he studied a lot. And one thing he studied is people who've had spontaneous remissions of terminal or incurable illnesses, right? And he says, all these people have a couple things in common. And it's not necessarily their theological or religious beliefs. He goes, one way to describe what almost all of them have in common, he goes, all of them, almost to a certain extent, it's like they have a feeling, and this is just one way of describing it, that they're riding on the back of a giant, and all they really need to do is whisper in the giant's ear what they need, and it'll be taken care of like that, right? And so that's what allows abundance to flow, and what allows you to go, well, I don't have to be miserable in doing this, because God will show me how to do it in a way that is fun, right?
Yeah, amen.
Does that make sense? So, percentages, 30% more deep enough, 60 more, 70% more deep enough, 80, 75, 80. So I'll say we're about 75% there. Again, this is easy to do with you because you've done a lot of work on yourself. Maybe we'll fine tune it a bit here. I'm going to say, as Kelly, keeping me from being higher percentage here is a is a spiritual root. Yes, it's a vow, a judgment. I judge myself. I judge others. I judge an institution. So a lot of times when I go through, one thing I'll use is you're trying to figure out, okay, what's the judgment of? And when I toss out the word institution, it's a great kind of something to hold a lot of things in, like the institution of marriage, the institution of success, the institution of whatever, right?
Right.
So I judge the institution of marriage, yes, of success, yes, Kelly, marriage and these two are. So, when you were married, was having a successful marriage super important to you? Does that make sense?
Yes. No.
I
mean, it was in the beginning, but I think
yeah, in the beginning or so. Well, how much did it impact you that your marriage didn't work out?
In the beginning, but yes. I mean, I have a fiance who we've been together 4.5 years and would love to be married. My parents didn't have a good marriage, so I never really saw people with good marriages, and I would love to have a good marriage.
Yeah.
But sometimes I doubt whether, I'm capable of staying, keeping it the most important thing. I'd like to be able to keep the marriage 100% and not get distracted by everything else.
Sure. Let me just figure this out. So I judge the institution of marriage and success to be something on the map, on the top of the map, then yellow, and orange God view. So, I'm punitive, disdain. This successful marriage, disdain. So, so what I would kind of say is, often, and I'll explain this, one thing about the map of consciousness is it kind of gives you a good understanding of the two different ways to go through life. With this mentality of a slave or servant, or the mentality of a child of God, or a daughter of the king, or, whatever, if someone doesn't have a real religious framework, you would have to go, okay, the mindset of someone who's disempowered or the mindset of someone who's empowered. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes.
And so one thing is that when, in certain areas, if you have the mindset of a slave or servant, in that context, institutions and people and circumstances have authority over you. Does that make sense? That makes sense?
Yes.
So the way I would kind of describe it is this successful marriage institution kind of, looks at you like, yeah, no, you're not, we're not giving you entrance, or, does that make sense? It's like, you don't qualify,
Right.
your parents' background, your own history, it's like, I'm sorry, but we have higher standards here. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely.
So, but if you realize that God loves you, if you think of, if you were actually the daughter of the king, if you actually were the princess, is there an institution in the king's kingdom which would deny you entrance or disdain you?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, no. You'd be like, yeah, I am the princess, and I don't think you have the authority here. Right?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so that shift changes everything. So the more you connect to that God loves you, the easier it is to shift this. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So just say this. Say, I let go of this judgment.
I let go of this.
Actually, we'll preface it easily just by saying this. Because God loves me.
Because God loves me.
I let go of any judgment.
I let go of any judgment.
That the institution of a successful marriage disdains me.
That the institution of a successful marriage disdains me.
All right. Just say, I appreciate all the lessons I've learned in my life.
I appreciate all the lessons I've learned in my life.
And it even more qualifies me for what I really want.
And it even more qualifies me for what I really want.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You're like, well, I know exactly. I've seen my parents, and I have plenty of experience to build a successful marriage because I know what not to do. There you go.
Right. Yeah.
So we'll say, this is 75% or more, percent or more, 95, 100. So we'll change this from 75 to 95%. We'll go down here. I'm going to say, as Kelly. All right. Hi, we're at 30% or more, 60 more, 70 more, 65% or more, 60. So this is really the area we're going to work on a bit more. I'm going to say, as Kelly, keeping me from being higher in this area is a spiritual root. Yes, it's a vow, a judgment, an offense, unforgiveness towards myself, unforgiveness towards others, unforgiveness towards self. So we go unforgiveness towards self for something on. So, and interesting enough, I would say, unforgiveness is specifically is actually a pretty rare thing. What I find what most people consider or think they're feeling unforgiveness is actually offense. And offense is when you feel that someone or something has taken away from you or making your life more difficult. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's a subtle thing. I'm going to say unforgiveness towards myself for something on the map. Yes. On the top of the map, in green, in blue, blue God view, blue life view, eat. Unforgiveness towards myself for something about complete. Okay, wasn't expecting that. Let's figure this out. Complete something on the chart, on the map. Complete. Complete. Are you ever kind of hard on do you ever think about your age and think that you should have been somewhere different by now, or?
No.
So I'm just trying to figure out. So here's what we'll do. We'll just be neutral. I'm going to say this situation is also accurately described on the map, on the top of the map, in green, in blue, ineffable, complete, ineffable. My life is complete. So, do you wish you had more clarity on a plan? Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm very hard on myself on like thoughts and behaviors, I would say. I mean, everybody else would say, boy, you're such a giver and you're so patient and you're so calm, but I'm always trying to do more self-improvement.
Yeah.
Be better.
So this is, here's the thing. On one hand, the thought of going into business mode makes you miserable. Does that make sense? Right?
Yeah.
And on the other hand, I would say probably you're very hard on yourself for not having like a business marketing plan. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you have two things going at once. You're like, I really need to do this, and I really hate
that I'm not doing it.
Right, exactly. So this is unforgiveness towards yourself. Ineffable just means there's like no words to it. You know, sometimes that can be so good. Like, I'm so happy. We'll describe it. There's no words. You know, I'm so in love or whatever.
Right.
Ineffable can also, you know, if someone's so miserable, they experience something. And you're like, well, describe it, and they're like, yeah, there's no words to describe how I feel. But this is just kind of a vague thing, right? It's like kind of unforgiveness towards yourself because you should have had a business plan. You should have something going, and because your kids need you know, it's like you need more money in the house, but you don't have, like, it's like,
but I'm not doing it. I'm not charging it. Right.
Exactly. So
I need it. I could bring it in, but I'm not just telling the people.
Yeah. So just do this. Just say, because God loves me.
Because God loves me.
I completely and totally forgive myself.
I completely and totally forgive myself.
That I haven't had a business plan.
That I haven't had a business plan.
All right. Just say this. Say, God, I ask you for wisdom.
God, I asked you for wisdom.
And I receive wisdom on how to build this.
And I receive wisdom on how to build this.
All right. So partially what you want to do is you can let go of the how, okay?
Right.
Don't worry about that. If you can start living in, you know, if you can start going to sleep at night, imagining and feeling what it feels like to have a successful practice, making what you need, okay? You don't worry about the how, okay? The how will come to you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right. And so part of it is you can rest in serenity without having a business plan first, right?
Yeah.
You're like, it'll come, right? I'm just gonna, there's like a lot of different ways to do this, right? And you just go, you know, that fearful, miserable state I used to occupy, that's not me. We don't do that anymore. We just allow the abundance to come in, right? We're just going to get out of the way, right?
He does tell us to trust him.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, there's a scripture that says you're supposed to cast all of your cares on God. And most people interpret that to mean, okay, when I get to a certain point that I can't handle anymore, I will take the extra that I can't handle and I'll ask God to take care of that. And I will continue to carry this heavy load. And that's right. That's not at all what that scripture says, you know? So high-wise, this is 60% or more, 90%, 95% or more, 90%. Okay, so and so here's the question is, how long do we need to do this? Do you feel decently connected to this affirmation?
Yeah, a lot more now than I did in the beginning.
Okay, good. So it makes more sense to you?
Yes.
And what this actually means to do?
Right.
So,
seems scary. You could be like, what miserable, fearful state? That's not me. But
exactly. You need to be like, you need to be super diligent on not allowing, on catching this miserable, fearful state and just stomach. No, that's not us. Out. Right.
Right.
Right. Do you, question for you, if you were, how much do you want to make every month from your coaching practice?
$2,000.
Okay. When you're making $2,000 a month, do you have like a best friend you would be talking to on the phone who's like, Kelly, how's your coaching business going? And you're like, oh my goodness, I hit my goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So yeah, I could find somebody to encourage me and be like accountability partner or.
No. So what I'm talking about is your imagination. Okay. So as you're saying this affirmation and thinking about it, what I want you to do is I want you to have real clarity about, so what you're doing is you're going to sleep in the reality that this is an accomplished fact. Okay.
Okay.
So what experience would best illustrate this? For example, you have a best friend, Susie, and you imagine yourself on the phone and Susie calls you and Susie's like, Kelly, how's everything going? And she goes, and you're like, oh my goodness, remember I talked about building my coaching practice? I just looked and I made $2,000 in the last 4 weeks. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, and I can even see the expression on your face. You're like, I did it. Right?
Yeah.
Or, right, would you have a conversation with Susie, or would you have maybe a conversation with some of your foster kids? Does that make sense?
Yes, because I'm trying to be the role model that they can see. When I had my master's in therapist, I wasn't able to go out and do that because when I got done with school, my youngest daughter got type 1 diabetes. So I had a plan. I was going to go out and I was going to have my office because I didn't go back to grad school until 2000. I got done in 2010. So I had a plan of what I was going to do with my life in the future. But when she got sick, she was only 4, and I needed to be here for all the time she missed school. And so all this kind of struggling here and there. And so I'm showing them, look, I figured out, God gave me a way to study and to do this from home. So that way, if her illness, I can pick her up. Not where I planned, but you still can, got to manifest the success when your direction completely changed unexpectedly.
So maybe, how about if you can imagine yourself sitting your kid and your foster kids down and saying, hey, remember how I told you I was going to build this business? Mm-hmm. I did it. And I want to go back over how I actually created this in my life so that you guys can understand that you can create anything you want to going forward in life, right?
Yes.
I mean, if your foster kids learned that while they were living with you, would it not fundamentally alter the course of their entire life?
That they can do it, yeah.
And I can see you look on your face. It's like, that would be awesome, right? So it's not just about everyone having new shoes. It's about like, I fundamentally taught you the most important thing in life, that, you are creative, right? And you can, regardless of circumstances, regardless of how crappy none of your parents were, it's like you can do exactly what you want to, right?
Right.
So that might be the state or the thing you imagine as you're going to sleep at night, as you're connecting to this affirmation. Does that make sense?
Yes.
As I rest in serenity, I score in the miserable first state I used to occupy, because now you're like, that's not me at all. I'm like the butt-kicking foster mom who empowers her kids to like go be world changers, right?
And them not play their own tape recorders of your stupid, their own scripts of abuse.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. It's like you can stop that pattern right there in their lives. So, so here's the question is, as Kelly, I need to meditate on this. 5 or more minutes a day. 10 more minutes a day. 20 more minutes a day. 15 minutes. 1 or more times a day. 2 or more times a day. 1 time a day. So if we say, so you actually have a pretty decent attention span. Is that accurate?
Surprisingly.
Yeah.
I do have ADHD, but by doing this, boy, I'm able to focus for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, very interesting. The last lady I worked with, she could only do 5 minutes at a time, but like 3 times a day, right?
Right.
So for 5 or more days. 5 or more days. 21 more days. So one thing I would work on doing is do this like 15 minutes before you go to bed at night as you're about to fall asleep. For about 15 minutes, just think about this conversation, think about the feelings, imagine it, go over this affirmation and do it for at least 20 days. And what we're going to do is, and again, for everyone who's watching this, this is an experiment, right?
Right.
We're experimenting with trying to hack this and kind of more quantify this whole process for people. So I'm going to say, as Kelly, this is 10% or more already manifested, 20% more already manifested, 30% more, 35% or more, 30% or more. So I would say currently you're already, it's like you're, sometimes what happens is the thing will be manifested before it actually shows up in your life. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
A lot of times, on a number of different ways, people know they've got it before it actually shows up.
Right.
This was true for my mom in dealing with terminal cancer. She said one night she went out and she had been focused for years on visualizing her body being healthy because she had breast, lymphatic, and uterine cancer. And she goes, one night she went out and she was going for a walk and she saw the moon and she knew that her healing was such an accomplished fact that the moon would literally have to fall from the sky for her not to get her healing. Like it was as much an accomplished fact as that is an accomplished fact. Does that make sense?
Wow.
And not long after that, she was healed. So that's what we're talking about. It's like, it manifests inside you first before it shows up outside. Does that make sense?
Right.
So,
Yes.
and that's it. And interesting enough, obviously you've done piles of work on yourself.
Yeah.
Because we didn't do any trapped emotions or anything. It's all done already, right?
Right.
Any questions for me on this?
No. So for me to if I wrote something down by my bed before, so is this sentence and then I'm just recapping it in my mind?
So what you're doing is you're thinking about this sentence, saying the sentence, and then also very importantly, seeing how accurately you can feel this state, right? What would it feel like if abundance flows? What would it feel like if you started having to be pretty good at using your planner because you had multiple coaching clients? Does that make sense?
Right.
Like someone goes, hey, I need an appointment. You're like, oh, hold on a second. Let me figure out when I can fit you in.
Right.
Like right now you might be like, oh, I know exactly when I have room, whenever.
Right. That's key that you said to feel it.
Yeah.
Because I am definitely an analytical thinker, much more with my brain and my thinking. So to take time to feel it, that would probably make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And I'll give you a resource here. Neville Goddard is good at this. He wrote, you can go on Amazon and get his essential collection.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe start with The Feeling is the Secret. And I would call him more like a Christian metaphysicist. Very interesting take he has on this whole process. Personally, I will say a disclaimer that theologically there's some very fundamental things that I don't agree with him at all. However, I've read his books and I've gotten a tremendous amount personally out of things I do agree with him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
People tend to look at something someone says and just toss everything else that they have gotten an insight on. And that's sad because you miss a lot of good stuff. So there's if you're analytical and want to analyze, okay, really, how does this actually work? That would be a great resource for you. So,
right.
and you can get it on Kindle as well. But tons and tons and tons of examples on people doing this, right? I'll give you an example. The other day, I've done a lot of ride sharing in Austin, driving for Uber and Lyft, driving limos for a while. I've probably done 6,000 rides in Austin. Okay.
Wow.
And in all that time, up until recently, I had one person give me $100 tip, and that's because I didn't have change, and I brought his girlfriend's cell phone back, and he just ended up giving me $100, right? But one day, I think to myself and I go, you know what? I want to get better tips while I'm driving limos, right? And so I saw and felt, in my imagination, I looked in my wallet and there were 2 $100 bills there. And in my imagination, I felt and knew that I had gotten those 2 $100 bills from a tip from somebody. And about a week or two later, I drove this family. I picked them up, drove them to a concert, drove them around. And at the end of the night, when I took him home, he took out 2 $100 bills and gave it to me.
Wow.
So what you find is that, it's easier than you think. It does take focus. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so the encouragement I would tell you is that you don't have a lot of emotional blocks in your way of doing this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because you've done a lot of work on yourself. Probably a lot of it is just to be start living in the as if it's already happened state, right? And when you do that, you can come up with the marketing business ideas that can be fun, right?
Right.
So, so you may even in fact include that. That could be a very important detail to put in, right? That you say in your conversation with your foster kids or everything, and you can say, hey, and by the way, I had fun doing this, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because it's this assumption that you have to be miserable to be a successful business person, right? That's like, you're freaked out about.
They're not gonna want to do it if it seems.
Yeah, they're like, oh, sign me up. Great.
Yeah, right.
But if you're like, I had the most fun doing this because this and this and this happened, and I never even thought about an idea like that, right?
Yeah, that's great.
I'll give you one other insight, because you say you're a fairly analytical person. You like kind of step-by-step processes, right? Mm-hmm. If you look on the map of consciousness and you look at the level of reason right here, you see that, right? Because you're all about reason, right?
Right.
Boom, boom, boom. Well, if you look at here's the process. How do you get there, right? If someone comes to a solution by a very sequential manner, it's never that impressive a solution. Does that make sense?
Correct.
You're like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
When someone is just out meditating and daydreaming and walking on the beach, and all of a sudden they get an idea that's like, blam, and they have a solution, and people are like, holy crap.
Yeah. That's
brilliant. How did you even come up with that, right?
Right.
Because it's abstract. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the process of coming up with excellent solutions and understanding on a higher level is the process of abstraction. And it's when seemingly disconnected things come together by God's divine timing and favor to create something that's an extraordinary solution. And you don't come on. You can't tap into that by putting your nose to the grindstone and stressing out and doing something that's not fun.
Right.
You come on that by living in the serenity of the accomplished facts that there was a simple, easy way to do it that was fun, and enjoying it. And your subconscious mind will go creating that fun, simple, effective solution to build your business. And then all of a sudden it comes and you're like, oh my God, why did I never think of that?
Right.
That's what happens. So it's another way to describe it is typically when people are stressed out. If you're like, I have to make more money. My foster kids need money, and it's not fun. And you're focused like this. You're like, oh my God, I got to go marketing. I got to do this. I got to seem faithful, right? Yeah. And what happens is is you got tunnel vision, and the problem is the abstract, really good solutions are on your peripheral vision, right?
Right.
You can get out of this mode and you go, I'm just going to meditate that we have abundance in our lives, and I can already see and feel the practice going, and people calling me, and then so you relax and you look around, you're like, oh my goodness, there's my solution right there. I never even thought of it, right?
Right.
But it was always there. The solution was always there. So
right.
Anyways, is that helpful for you?
Yes, thank you very much.
Cool. Well, keep me posted. Maybe we'll do another brief session or so just to kind of measure if you're being consistent, right?
Right.
And sometimes the consistency is kind of where people get stuck sometimes, of just being like, okay, we're going to day in, day out. We're going to do it, right?
Diligent,
So,
yeah.
if this has been a problem for you in the past, you may try and figure out some way to make sure that you develop this habit of being consistent in this. Does that make sense?
Or set the alarm on the iPhone.
Just some sort of trick. Like if people want to watch less TV, here's what you do. You take the batteries out of the remote control and put them across the room in the drawer.
Right.
It takes you 30 seconds to go get the batteries. Are you going to do that? No.
Right. Right. So you're like, oh,
Forget it. You read the book that's sitting next to you on the couch instead because it's not worth it, right?
Right.
And so if you just think about, arranging your life so it's easier to be consistent in doing this. So
fantastic.
Anyways, well, this is fun. I appreciate the opportunity to do this with you. And
Thank you.
we'll keep me posted because helping you manifest that, a lot of other people are going to benefit. So it's important, right?
Yes. Oh, yes. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
You're very welcome.